My name is Marian Turner, sir, and this is the minute I finally stopped whispering inside my own house. I was standing at the sink, sunlight spilling over the laminate counter, when I saw it. My cobalt blue wedding plate wedged on top of banana peels and a crumpled paper towel. The chip on its rim flashed like a small moon. 45 years of breakfasts and birthdays, dumped into the trash as if you could throw away time. Vanessa leaned against the island with her phone, the camera aimed over my shoulder the way you'd frame a before and after. "Mom, these things are filthy," she said. "They smell like the closet. We need a fresh look." Evan agrees. Something warm tightened in my chest, and for a second I listened to the tick of the kitchen clock, as if the house itself were waiting to see what I would do. I reached into the bin, felt coffee grounds grit against my fingertips, and lifted the plate free. The chip was from a night Robert dropped it while trying to help with the dishes, laughing so hard he could barely apologize. He's been gone 7 years, but that laughter still lives somewhere in these walls. Vanessa wrinkled her nose. "Mom, don't. I'll just order another set. White. Modern. Not this." I rinsed the plate under hot water and watched the brown river run clear. I set it on a towel and picked another from the trash, then another. The edge of anger thinned my voice. "These aren't things, Vanessa. They're the table where my boy learned to hold a spoon. They're the Christmas my father was still alive." She slid her phone into her pocket and crossed her arms. "If it matters that much, keep one. The truck comes at noon." I could hear the truck before I could see it, that heavy diesel hum turning down our street, a sound like a door about to shut. I wasn't trembling because the dishes were dirty. I was trembling because I finally understood what had been happening to me in slow inches. I lifted the last blue bowl from the trash and held it against my apron like a rescued bird. Vanessa laughed once, soft and unbelieving. "You're being dramatic." "Maybe," I said, drying the bowl. "Or maybe I'm awake." Outside, the truck growled past. Inside, something in me changed its mind about silence. The first night Evan and Vanessa came back, the house felt full again. Evan stacked boxes by the stairs, his shoulders slumped but his smile determined, and said it would only be for a couple of months. Tops. Vanessa stood beside him, one hand on her pregnant belly, thanking me again and again. I told them not to worry. The house had felt too quiet since Robert passed. Maybe a little noise would bring it back to life. At first, it did. I cooked dinners for 3 instead of 1. Evan fixed a leak in the upstairs bathroom. Vanessa helped fold laundry and talked about baby names. For a while, I thought we had found a rhythm, but comfort has a way of shifting without warning, and soon the rhythm became something else entirely. It started with the curtains. I came home from the grocery store one afternoon, and my soft beige ones were gone, replaced by thick gray panels that swallowed the light. "They'll help the baby nap," Vanessa said. The beige ones looked tired. I nodded, pretending not to feel the small loss in my chest. After all, they were just curtains. Next came the furniture, my mahogany bookshelf, the one Robert built for me the year Evan started school, vanished from the living room. In its place stood a sleek white storage unit that smelled of glue and new beginnings I hadn't asked for. When I asked where the shelf had gone, Vanessa smiled like it was obvious. Downstairs. We needed room for the rocker. The bookshelf joined the boxes in the basement, where the air always felt damp and heavy. The TV grew louder, the music thumped earlier, and the smell of Vanessa's candles, vanilla mixed with something chemical, sank into every hallway. When I turned the volume down, she sighed as if I'd turned off her air supply. "The baby likes sound," she said, and I wondered if she could hear how my pulse matched the bass line. Evan tried to smooth things over. "She's nesting, Mom. It'll calm down after the baby. I believed him because mothers believe their sons, especially when it's easier than seeing the truth. By the 3rd month, I found my favorite robe shoved behind winter coats in the back of the closet. "It sheds," Vanessa said without looking up from her phone. "And the smell gives me a headache." I thought about saying something, anything, but words felt like eggshells I'd break if I moved too quickly. When the baby arrived, she was perfect. Tiny fingers, quiet breath, eyes the color of summer honey. I cried when I first held her, and for a few weeks, the tension softened. I told myself all of this, the noise, the mess, the gray curtains, was worth it for the baby. Then the crib appeared in my bedroom. Vanessa explained it as if she were doing me a favor. "We'll take the master. The baby wakes every few hours, and we need space for the monitor and the fridge." She smiled that soft smile that always ended the conversation before it started. Evan agreed, rubbing his neck the way he did when guilt brushed too close. I slept that night in the small guest room across the hall, staring at the ceiling fan, wondering how a woman could own a house and still feel displaced inside it. Bills began to pile up, groceries, utilities, the extra doctor's visits, all in my name. When I mentioned the rising costs, Vanessa tilted her head. "We'll contribute once Evan's new job starts. You know we're good for it." I did know. They were my family. That's what made every small theft feel excusable. Until one Sunday, at the flower stand after church, I reached for my credit card and found it missing. My purse felt lighter, emptier. That hollow sound when you know something isn't where it should be. I drove home with a knot in my throat. "Maybe you left it at the store," Evan said, scrolling through his phone. "Vanessa might have grabbed it by mistake." By mistake. That's what he called the designer bag she carried the next week, the one that shimmered under kitchen light. That's what he called the new dishes, plain white, glossy, lined up in my cabinets like strangers. Every time I tried to reclaim something small, I heard the same reply. "We're a family. Mom." Family, I realized, had become a word that meant mine. For now. One night, the baby cried, and I woke to find Vanessa pacing the hall, her phone flashlight bouncing off the walls. "Can you keep her for a bit?" she asked, thrusting the baby into my arms. Her eyes were hollow. "I need sleep." I held the child and rocked her until dawn, my back aching, my heart somewhere between pity and warning. It took 8 months for the realization to settle. I wasn't living with them. They were living through me. And the morning I saw that blue plate in the trash, I understood that some things, once broken, can still cut deep. The morning after the plate incident, the house was unbearably still. Even the refrigerator hum sounded cautious, like it didn't want to be noticed. I had spent the night sitting in the small guest room, my rescued dishes stacked in a cardboard box beside the bed, their faint scent of soap mixed with the dusty smell of that room, and for the first time in months, I slept without hearing the baby's cries through the wall. When I woke, I made coffee the way Robert used to, a pinch of brown sugar, a touch of cinnamon. The mug warmed my palms, but it couldn't settle the cold sitting under my ribs. I stared out the window at the garden he and I planted years ago. The roses were climbing higher than they ever had before, blooming wild, as if trying to remind me what freedom looked like. Vanessa came downstairs, still in her robe, scrolling through her phone. "Mom," she said casually, "I saw a cleaning service online. They can come tomorrow to clear the basement. There's so much old stuff down there." My fingers tightened around the mug. "Don't touch the basement," I said quietly. She frowned. "Why? It's just furniture and dusty boxes. We need space for the baby's playroom." That was the moment something inside me shifted, a click of decision. Small but final. "Vanessa," I said, still calm, You and Evan need to find another place." She blinked, as if she hadn't heard me right. "Excuse me? This arrangement isn't working anymore." Her eyes narrowed, and a sharp laugh slipped out. "We're your family. You can't just kick us out." I didn't answer. I walked past her, rinsed my cup, and left the room before she could say another word. Upstairs. I opened the old hardcover notebook I used to keep household budgets in. The lined pages smelled faintly of dust and ink. I wrote across the top in block letters, "Plan." Step 1, legal advice. Step 2, proof. I wasn't going to scream or plead. I was going to document everything, because women like me have learned that calm evidence holds more power than tears ever will. By noon, I had called my niece, Renee. She worked at a small law firm in town, bright and precise, the kind of young woman who remembered birthdays and sent thank you notes. When she picked up, her voice was cheerful. "Aunt Marian, what's wrong? You sound serious." "I need to talk," I said. "It's about the house." There was a pause, a soft intake of breath. "I can be there tomorrow morning." That evening, Evan came home from work, tired and covered in sawdust. He kissed Vanessa on the forehead, picked up the baby, and turned to me with an apologetic smile. "Rough day, Mom. Sorry we missed dinner." I nodded, studying him, my son who used to call every Sunday just to check on me, who now barely looked me in the eye. "Evan," I asked softly, "do you know where my credit card is?" He froze for a second, then gave the same practiced shrug I'd seen too many times. Vanessa might have used it for groceries. Groceries? Yeah, or baby supplies. I'll check with her. He disappeared into the kitchen, and I sat there in the dim light, the tick of the wall clock loud enough to hurt. I knew then I wasn't imagining any of it. They weren't careless. They were comfortable. Too comfortable. The next morning, Renee arrived at 10 sharp in a navy pantsuit, her briefcase clutched like a shield. She hugged me tightly, and I almost cried from the simple kindness of that gesture. We sat at the kitchen table, my kitchen, while sunlight caught the gold trim of the rescued dishes stacked neatly in the box beside us. I laid out the bank statements I'd printed that morning. Renee's brow furrowed as she traced each line with her pen. $1,800 for home aesthetics? That's plates, right? White ones, I said. Vanessa's choice. Another line. And these, clothes, makeup, online subscriptions, all in your name. Yes, she sighed. Then we have grounds. Unauthorized use of a credit card, potential fraud. But I think what you really want is your house back. I looked at her over my glasses. Exactly. Renee spent 2 hours explaining the process. Written notice, 30 days, documented evidence of residence. When she was done, she squeezed my hand. "You're not doing anything wrong, Aunt Marian. You're enforcing respect." That afternoon, I printed the notice. My name looked strange in bold letters, firm and final. I placed the document inside a folder with the bank statements and laid it on my desk, the same desk Robert used to balance his checkbook on Sunday nights. At 8 that evening, Vanessa returned from shopping, her perfume arriving before she did. She carried bags from stores I could never afford on a widow's pension. "Long day?" I asked. She smiled without meeting my eyes. "Therapeutic." I nodded. "Enjoy it while you can." She blinked. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Tomorrow," I said. "We're going to have a family talk." Her laugh was small and uncertain. "You sound dramatic, Mom." "Maybe," I said again, using the same tone as that morning with the dishes. "Or maybe I'm finally awake." That night, I didn't pace or cry. I wrote down every detail, every date, every receipt. I wasn't planning revenge. I was planning justice. When I turned off the lamp, The room was dark except for the moonlight touching the blue of the rescued plates. They looked almost alive, the edges gleaming softly, as if waiting for me to follow through. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't scared of what tomorrow might bring. The next morning, I woke before dawn. My heart was steady, not racing like it used to when I heard their footsteps upstairs. I dressed carefully, the way you do when you expect a storm but intend to walk through it anyway. Downstairs. I brewed coffee and opened the windows wide. The air was crisp, and the curtains fluttered like they were finally breathing again. Evan came down first, rubbing his eyes. "Morning, Mom," he mumbled, heading straight for the fridge. He stopped when he saw the papers on the kitchen table. The eviction notice, the printed bank statements, the photographs I'd taken of the damaged furniture, the receipts from the card. "What's all this?" he asked, his voice wary. I looked at him, really looked at him. The man who used to run barefoot through this kitchen with peanut butter on his hands, who once built me a crooked birdhouse for Mother's Day. "It's the truth, Evan," I said softly. "You and Vanessa need to move out." He frowned, the confusion fading into something harder. "Mom, you can't be serious." Before I could answer, Vanessa came in, her hair still damp from the shower, her phone glued to her palm. She stopped dead when she saw the folder. Her voice went sharp. "What is this supposed to be?" I gestured toward the table. "Evidence, bank records, unauthorized use of my card. You've been spending money that isn't yours." She crossed her arms and laughed under her breath. "You're overreacting, and we're family. Families share things." "Not this," I said. "Not my savings, not my home." Her lips curled. "You'd really throw out your own son's family over a few receipts?" My son opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. "Evan, I'm not angry at you. I know you've been working hard, but your wife crossed lines I can't ignore. This isn't about punishment. It's about respect." Vanessa's voice rose. "You think respect means living like it's 1975? Everything in this house smells like the past. Those plates, that furniture, even you. We've been trying to help you move on." I felt the blood rush to my ears, but my voice stayed even. Throwing away the things I love isn't helping. It's erasing me. She rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic. You always are." Something in me hardened. I reached for the manila folder and pulled out the last page, the notice, signed and dated. "You have 15 days, I said, "to pay what you owe and move out, or I'll take it to court." Vanessa's face went white. "You can't do that." "I already have," I said quietly. "My lawyer filed the paperwork this morning." Evan looked between us, his mouth slightly open, his eyes wide and frightened. "Mom, you filed?" "Yes," I said, softer now. "Because I need my home back, and because if I don't stand up for myself now, I never will." Vanessa stepped closer, anger trembling in her voice. "You're unbelievable. No wonder, Robert." I cut her off before she could finish. "Don't say his name." The air between us went still. Even the baby monitor on the counter seemed to stop humming. Evan's voice broke the silence. "Enough, Vanessa. That's enough." She turned to him, stunned. "You're taking her side?" He looked at her, then at me, and for a long time said nothing. Finally, he sighed. "I'm taking the side of what's right." Vanessa grabbed her phone, her voice rising. "You'll regret this, both of you." She stormed upstairs, and the baby began to cry. Evan ran a hand over his face. "Mom, I'm sorry," he said, his voice small. "I didn't know it was this bad. I thought she was just overwhelmed." I touched his arm. "I know, son. I did too. But love doesn't mean letting people walk through you." He nodded, eyes shining. "I'll make it right." I know you will." He left to calm the baby, and I stood alone in the kitchen. My knees were trembling, but not from fear. It was relief. Relief that I had finally said it out loud, that the walls of this house had heard me take back my name. That evening, after they had both gone quiet upstairs, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea and listened to the crickets. The night felt honest, unfiltered. I thought of Robert, his patience, his laugh, the way he always said, "Don't let people rearrange your soul, Marie." For the first time in years, I whispered back. I didn't. When I came inside, the blue plates were still on the counter, gleaming faintly in the moonlight. I ran my fingers along the golden cracks where they'd chipped and realized how beautiful they still were. Flawed but whole. Like me. And when morning came, I woke not to shouting or thudding footsteps, but to silence. A silence that didn't hurt anymore. It sounded like peace. 2 weeks after that morning, the house finally belonged to me again. The quiet felt different now. Not empty, but clean. Like air after a storm. Evan and Vanessa spent days packing in silence. They moved around me carefully, as if afraid one wrong word might shatter whatever was left. I didn't interfere. I had already said everything that needed saying. When the moving truck backed into the driveway, I stood by the doorway. Vanessa carried the baby in her arms, avoiding my eyes. "You got what you wanted," she said. Her tone wasn't angry anymore, just tired. I looked at her, really looked, and saw a young woman who'd mistaken control for strength. "No," I said quietly. "I got what I needed. Peace." She handed me the baby for one last goodbye. The little girl's small hand brushed my cheek, soft as a promise. "She won't remember any of this," Vanessa murmured. "Maybe not," I said. "But I will." Evan came down the steps carrying the last box. He hesitated before speaking. "Mom, I'm sorry for not seeing it sooner." His voice cracked a little. "I'll pay back everything we owe." I shook my head. "Money's not what I lost, son. I just needed you to see the truth." He nodded, and for the first time in months, I saw my son again. Not a man trapped between two loyalties, but someone standing on his own feet. "We'll figure it out," he said. I believed him. When they drove away, I stood in the yard until the sound of the engine faded down the street. Then I went inside and closed the door. The lock clicked. Solid and satisfying, I leaned against it, exhaled, and whispered to the empty hallway, "Welcome home, Marian." That night, I unpacked the blue plates. Some were chipped, others cracked, but every one of them had survived. I boxed them carefully and took them to a local artisan who repaired ceramics with kintsugi, the Japanese art of mending broken pottery with gold. "The flaw becomes part of its beauty," the artist explained. I smiled. "I know exactly what you mean." When the plates returned, I lined them across the kitchen counter. The gold seams caught the morning light, glowing like quiet courage. I brewed coffee, set one of the plates before me, and ate breakfast alone. Not lonely, but free. Evan started calling every Sunday. At first, he sounded hesitant, like someone walking into a room they once broke. But each week, the distance softened. He told me about work, the baby learning to crawl, and how Vanessa was trying to do better. I didn't press for more. Some repairs take longer than others. Last Sunday, he showed up with a box of pastries from my favorite bakery. "You look good, Mom," he said. "I feel good," I replied. "Peace looks better on people than guilt." That night, I sat on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the last light fade behind the trees. The repaired plate rested beside me, gold glimmering under the sunset. People think forgiveness is for others. It isn't. It's how you stop carrying the wreckage. If someone ever makes you feel like a stranger in your own home, remember, those walls remember who built them, and so do you.